your tea.
Take those monies and spread across families.
Hello, thank you for tuning in. This is Key with Tea Time with Key, and today I have Miss Anika Williams with me from Girl Squad. Today we are celebrating and discussing 400, which is the title of this segment, which will be insinuating from the time that our ancestors arrived on this U.S. soil up until now. So in today's society, currently, the black community, they are definitely on a rise in business, education, whatever the case may be. We're definitely taking back our pride. We are taking back and breaking off the chains of everything that has been done to us or our ancestors. And currently, where we are and where can we go from here, because we still have a lot of work to do. And basically the purpose of this event is to make people aware, as well as to have a Black History moment, you know, to see the progress that we've made, to see the things that may have been holding us back, restraining us, whether it be something personally with people that you know, people in the community period, or even sometimes with the corporations that we work in and day out. So
don't get us started on that.
Yeah. Yeah, you know. So you can definitely talk about the work situation. I know to start this main discussion off, we can go into the Willie Lynch letter. And I can let you read that if you like, or we can take turns reading different parts.
Background history, background knowledge of the Willie Lynch letter. It was supposedly a letter written by a slave owner from the West Indies. He was supposed to be giving advice to the other slave owners in North America and different places, because they were having an issue with controlling their slaves and knowing how to, you know, take them from their homeland to now bring them here and make them do what they wanted them to do. So he came and spoke to them in Virginia about what they needed to do, what he has been doing, and some of the tactics that he has been trying. One of the things that he said to try out is focusing on age, and not because he had a reason, but because he said to start with an A. Like, how crazy is that to even say we're just gonna do that because it starts with A? That just, it blows my mind. I ain't even gonna get all into that just yet, but it blows my mind about that. Some other things is, you know, putting old against, you know, young, the men against the women,
light against dark,
light against dark,
the curly hair against the straight, and a lot of these aesthetics that it speaks on are things that we go by today. Of course, team dark skin, team light skin, and even how the disrespect of the school system with the children that are coming up with this generation, with the older generation, they are very disrespectful, and I'm not with it. And I don't know if that's the difference with how we were raised in the generation, because I know we were like some of the last dying breed to have real grandparents. You know, like for myself, I know I just lost my grandparents back in 2014 and 2016, and some of my friends, they still have their grandparents as well, but a lot of them, they're now dying off, or they weren't the same age as compared to a lot of people now. Like a lot of people, grandparents, they like in their 40s or 50s. And not to say that some of our grandparents weren't that old at that time when we were younger, but it's just, it's been a big shift. I don't know when the shift occurred with where, you know, the family dynamic changed. And this is one way that the family dynamic has changed since we came over here. I will say that. Not that I've been and lived in Africa, but I have watched Roots. Not to say that you know, signifies anything big, but I have watched Roots, as well as I have seen some other families interact. You know, I've even seen I'll do a prime example of the Latino family. I know that they hold their elderly family members to a high regard and a high respect. And Black people, we used to do the same as well. And like I said, the reason why I did bring up Roots, I was going to use it as an example because I remember when it like first started in the first episode part, I don't know if any of y'all remember, but Kunta Kinte's grandmother, which was played by Maya Angelou, she was basically like the one who I guess you could say semi-raised them, but of course he also went out to go hunt, and that's why he ended up getting trapped into slavery. But also outside of that, that was also showing, you know, his manhood, and even the things of what manhood now even means to men today doesn't mean the same thing that it used to mean then. You know, a lot for people today, they don't seem that it even takes much to be a man. You know, just because I got kids or just because I got money, that makes me a man, and it does not. And even some things with the woman, you know, black girls, they have always been overly sexualized. So with some females, they think, you know, just because I have breasts and just because I have hips, that makes me a woman, and it's not. And that happens so young with us because we are built the way that we are. It's a lot of us, for us females in the black community, we end up being overly sexualized, and it's not even our fault. It's just our genetic makeup. You know, our parents, the way that they came together, and then it just spilled over to whichever way. And to even prime example with, I guess you could say with, I don't really want to say the R. Kelly thing that's going on, but it is the R. Kelly thing that's going on.
Speak your mind, speak
you
your
know,
mind.
but it is, it's the truth. But oversex, and I'm not saying, you know, that's neither here nor there with what's going on, but the actual content of that in the black community of sleeping with younger girls or sleeping with younger males, and even some males who lost their virginity at a young age to an older female, thinking that, oh, I'm the man. No, you were molested, you were raped. You know, that wasn't as though that made you cool. And then that goes to what it is to men. You know, they have this soul thing when they have daughters and when they have sons. It's like, oh, I'm going to teach my son to be a player, this, that, and the third. Oh, my daughter can't date till she's 35. So who is your son dating? He's dating someone else's daughter as well. And, you know, it's like, okay, you're so scared for what may happen to your daughter. What does that tell you about yourself as a man, or the things that you also allow to go on with other men around you, or that you even say that you associate yourself with? So that's what I have to say to that.
Well, I guess we're going to start with the family dynamic because she broke it down. So, you know, while you talking about it, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But just thinking about the family dynamic in my, you know, everyday life, I am a teacher. I teach 7th grade. So I do see a lot of stuff. I am around a lot of stuff. And it's basically like I'm helping to raise other people's kids even though I don't have any. So that's something in itself. But I see a lot of, like she was touching on, the disrespect or them having a problem with authority.
Yes.
I see a lot of that, and especially it's more so in our black males that I see it in, is they have that problem with respect and authority. And you know, so I, being the researcher on the side that I am, I went to go look that up as to why, and I found an article and it was talking about, you know, especially in the African American male community, one thing that's really big, and two things they really hold, is their family and respect for oneself. Like, you're not going to disrespect them, and you're not going to disrespect their family. I could say the same goes for really all of us, but I see that more rampant in our guys, and they like will puff up their chest and get ready to fight, especially, or argue with each other. And it's more so, and when I go take them in the hallway, it's something simple like they just disrespecting me. Like, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. So trying to teach them how to get to the point where you're not resorting to violence to solve that problem. Because one boy told me, you know, well, you know, Ms. Williams, I play football, so that's the way I get my anger out. But when I'm not in football season, I don't know what to do to get my anger out, because I can't just walk up and run up and hit somebody. So a lot of them are dealing with that internally, where they don't know how to, you know, gauge that anger and put it towards somewhere, you know, another outlet that's not violence. In that article, it was talking about historically, if you go back to African roots, that was two of the things, and still two of the things, that we as African Americans hold, you know, very dearly, is respect for ourselves and who we are, and not letting other people disrespect who we are, and then our family. Like, you ask anybody, even anybody in this room, what are some of the things, if you ever had to get in an argument or fight with somebody, what was it over? It's going to be one of those two things. Like, you're not going to let nobody disrespect your family or you. You're not going to let them come against that. And that was for a reason, because in the African culture, we go back historically, the family was a very huge thing, and it still is today. And like you said, we kind of, here in America, we kind of gotten away from it a little bit. Not all the way. But if you go back and look at soul food with the big mamas and, you know, your grandmas that taught you different stuff, and they didn't play, you like, it was strict, but you learned some stuff. And that's, you know, that was something that was revered. Whereas now we might have people that are older being grandmas or people that are younger being, being parents right now. So it's kind of like kids raising kids right now. And that family dynamic doesn't seem like is I'm not going to say it's all the way unimportant, because for me it's still important.
It's definitely still important.
But for younger, like, it might not be, and this is just our perspective, I don't mean it's true, but it doesn't seem to be the same way when we were growing up. But it was saying, in the African culture, when you make people feel great about being a part of that big family, like you got something to live for, and then you start taking responsibility and accountability because you belong somewhere.
Right.
And I think the difference is here, people don't feel like they belong to something, and I think that's what they're struggling with, is to belong in a place. And I was talking to a guy that goes to NC State, and he's from, Africa. Can't remember what part he said. But and he was telling me the difference between being here and there. And he was basically saying, we sometimes think y'all are, because we talked about that stigma of how you hear Africans don't like us sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they think that we are, what is that word, spoiled. They think that we are, we're not thankful for what we have. And he was like, the only reason some people will probably say that is because you got to look at what part of Africa that is, because every part is not affluent. He was like, some parts don't even have electricity for 24 hours. Like, they only have electricity here and there. It don't stay on the whole day. So us looking at y'all from the outside, it's like, y'all have all the stuff that we, want to, enrich our culture. And then I had to tell him, but y'all have to think about this. We were the ones that were, and some of your ancestors were brought here forcibly, and had to leave behind their language, had to leave behind, or they were trying to make them forget their culture. And you have to think about that. We are the lost kids in America, basically. We're lost. We know that we don't come from here originally, and that we don't originate from this place. But it's like our generation and who we are, we wouldn't know, even if we did go to Africa today, I wouldn't know where I was from. And that's a thing, and that's something that's hard to deal with, is knowing that you don't really belong here. You're here, but the people here don't even really want you here. Yeah. They bought you here for what they wanted you to be here for, but now they get tired of you because now we rising up and we're saying stuff. Now they're like, y'all need to go back. Go back where? I don't even know. I'm like,
and even with you saying that goes into the disconnect of a sense of belonging for those kids or whatever. It's the same thing as for the Black community as a whole. Like some of us, or some of everybody. Who does their research to find out where they came from or where their family originated from, all of that. But everybody is not taking the proper steps to do so. And so it does sometimes get you a sense of being angry, or just a sense of unknowingly knowing who you are. And that will sometimes put you off. Yeah, the identity crisis. Man. And that'll happen a lot of times on these jobs. You get so lost in the sauce, like Gucci Mane say, you get so lost in the sauce while you're at work, because you're being assimilated to somebody that you're not. You're not always being able to see they're low-key disrespecting me as a Black male or a Black female, but I'm taking it because I need this paycheck.
Or if you do see it, then people make it seem like you're crazy because you spoke up about it. And it's like, I'm not crazy. Yeah. I know what's going on. Y'all have been passive aggressive about it, but I know what's going on. Right. And that's something that I'm dealing with now in my workspace. Is like, I know what's going on. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, I'm not that. So it's like, okay, what are you going to do? And that's the hardest part, because I love what I do. I love my kids, but I don't like certain aspects. So I'm struggling with that, and I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. Yeah. So this conversation, y'all don't even know, like last night, it was hard for me before we even got to this. Like, I cried in my car a little bit. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, I was just like, I'm just so, more out of frustration than anything. Like, I'm frustrated. Like, I'm at that point. One of my coworkers like, shit, I ain't never hear you talk like that. I've heard you be mad and upset before about certain stuff. But she's like, I could just tell you're frustrated and you're trying to figure out what it is. Like, stuff is not right. Right. And that's kind of like how people that oppress us make us feel like when we speak up, we know something is wrong, but they're like, no, you just tripping. Yeah. No, I'm not.
And I'm glad you said that too, because that was also part of his letter. I know, I'm just going back to piggyback off of that. but where he discussed that once they share their language with black people, that we're going to start to realize what's going on, even though we've been there, but without reading and literacy and knowing exactly, what they're talking about. But having these slaves in your house, they're going to start listening, which then start to ensue, the Underground Railroad. You had the people in the house. Of course, they're listening to the things that master is doing. They're passing it along to the ones in the field. So the message is starting to get out. But then you also have the ones who are still like crabs in the bucket, which of course we still have those type of people today in the community. But also it was something that you said with far as Africa about certain parts being poor and not established as others. It's so crazy to me because we get so many different natural resources from Africa. Yet Africa is yet one of the poorest countries in the world.
They're bleeding
And
to
like,
death.
it's just it amazes me, and I don't understand as to how like the rest of Africa, or how I don't know how many people in one particular section where they may be living like this haven't revolted, or either there hasn't been any type of U.S. communication to help, build it up, being that we get so much from them and steal from them, because we don't even, I don't feel as though we paid them the right amount for anything we get, or we pay them at all, certain areas, but that's my mindset. But to go back to the letter, it was talking about far as on how to make a slave. Did you want to discuss that, or were we just still? Oh, okay. Well, and once again, this is a disclaimer to the Willie Lynch letter. There's been some controversy on it actually being, whether it's being true or fabricated to an extent. However, either way, if it hasn't, it has still proven to a lot to this day. So to make a slave, it would take a black man, a pregnant woman, and her baby boy. Then we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse, in which reduces them from their natural state in nature, whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to care for their offspring. And for that, just that section alone, that goes to the family dynamic again, breaking the black community down without having a male figure in the home. So you're already taking something out of the natural habitat. It took a male and a female to make and conceive a child. Why will it not take it to raise and to care for it? So when you take that male person out of the home, that's when you end up getting to breaking the woman down first. And of course it goes on to say, if you break the mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she would deliver it up to you, for her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. I would say that semi still goes on today, sadly. Because how even the black community, how we think about with coming together with going into business, or it's like I'm 18 or I'm grown, I need to get out my house, I get out my mama's house, I need to be on my own. As compared with some other ethnicities, they stay together more as compared to us. So it's like, your parents are like basically pushing you out now on your own. You gotta get out. And like you were talking about before we started filming, about the difference with how they raise the male and female child.
Take the nigger males away from females after you make them and keep them working. She will then go to, it will help in the way that they are psychologically trained. So like how you said, keep the body, take away the mind. So they go in the fields and they're being strong and they're being trained to be strong, but then other features are taken away. And so essentially the female is now, what they wanted was for the female to change and reverse roles with the male. And that is something that still is going on today. Looking at the mentality of it, because what they said in here was, you will have the female now in front of the male. Like, I just was like, what? It says, for the fear of young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak, independent, but physically strong, because she has become psychologically independent. She will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You got the nigga out front and the behind and scared. This is a perfect situation and sound sleep economic. before the break-in process, we had to alertly on guard at on times. And the reason why they did that is because they were nervous and they were scared because they knew what they did was wrong, and they were scared of that male coming back, realizing that y'all are tricking us. Y'all are doing this. So what they said was they were going to use the moms, the females, to, essentially make them not even think about it because they're like, just do what they want. Like, do what they want so they won't hurt you, they won't kill you. Because this is what they would do, break down the biggest, baddest, or who they deem to be the biggest, baddest male out of the group in front of the female, in front of everybody else. So then she's scared. She's like, oh my gosh, like, we just gonna have to figure out a way to do whatever they want so they don't hurt y'all. So then you telling your male son that, or you telling your husband or whoever that, you're like, just do what they want, just do what they want. So essentially you stop talking or thinking about it because you don't want her to be scared. Right. You're supposed to protect her, and you're wanting to be around for as long as you can. So then you stop, thinking about that. So that's crazy how they train or try to use us to break that down and have that be a breakdown, and we didn't even realize it, and it's still going on today because there are a lot of females now, and we have this conversation all the time amongst us as females. It seems to be a breakdown between male and female. Like, it seems like now we have switched roles, and I don't think it's nothing new, but we feel like we switched roles, and it being we're more vocal about how we feel. We openly communicate about our feelings, whereas the man has been trained to not do that. Right. But instead just be the strong force with the muscle, but not knowing and not being trained on how to be vulnerable because that's seen as a weakness. That was something that they used as a tactic to keep, the black man down and not have him be as strong as he could be because and that's done in the school system too. You make them, because I'm going to say this, I'm going to go back. Because I talked to somebody about this yesterday. Like, these kids these days, the one thing I will say about them is they have heart. They have heart. They're brave. They don't care, to be honest. Like, they care about stuff, but most times they don't care about the repercussions until after. They're just like, yo, we're going to make it do what it do, and that's what it is. And as a teacher, I'm like, I could kind of work with that. Like, y'all, the thing that y'all are missing is how to use your mind when it comes to that. Right. So I was telling somebody yesterday, it's not our generation they're going to have to worry about. It's going to be them that y'all are going to have to worry about. These people that don't want us to rise up and they're scared of us rising up. We the ones that's starting it and thinking about stuff, and we undoing stuff, and then we're teaching them how to do that. Right. So they're going to be the ones that get old. We already old, and we already up there. Not to say we're not helping in the fight, but those are going to be the ones that you got to worry about because right now, they got the heart. Yeah. A lot of us don't have the heart, but we got the mind. Yeah, we got the mindset. We have the mindset because we're more controlled now, to be like, and I don't want to say control because then that goes into a whole nother discussion, but we have a more sense of self-control as compared to the newer generation that's coming up. The new kids on the block, they don't care. They, like you said, they fight now, ask questions later. Like, it's nothing to it. They are going head first. You getting it. You better be scared. But if we get their minds with it, you so really are gonna have to be kind of nervous, and they are gonna be nervous because. And we've heard a study of, when we get down the line, this world is going to be filled basically with people of color more than any other. Yeah. And so they're nervous, they're scared because you don't want to be put off the map and you don't want to have to be accountable for what's happened. But these kids are very smart. I kid you not, I got a 13-year-old in my class and he knows what's going on. He said, I know what's going on. I know they don't like us. I know certain stuff. So they're thinking about stuff like that. They're smarter than people think they are. It's just more so about the fact of us, and that's why I take it so serious, and that's why I do Girl Squad, and that's why I do all of that, is because it's important for us to go back and give to them and teach them about that mindset, because that's what they need help with. They are impulsive right now, and so it's up to us as the ones that came before them, just like it was up to the generation before us, to sit us down and say, you know what? Y'all gotta think though. You gotta think. You gotta think as well as use your muscle with it, because you can't just have one without the other. It's not gonna work out. It's not gonna last. Because using this, only gonna last for so long to make people fearful. That's only gonna last for so long. You gotta have this, because how are you going to make this be lasting and a lasting effect? And that's what he was saying. And is we gotta come up with a way to make this lasting. So even that when we're gone, it's gonna keep going. And that's what I feel like we as Black people have to figure out. We gotta use our minds to make whatever we're doing now long lasting. And people are thinking about getting that bag now, but you're not thinking about investing that bag and going back and investing in your kids and going back and investing in your schools, because everybody caught up in getting the bag. So my wish and my desire is that I see a lot of women starting stuff for the girls, but I would love to see more men starting these mentoring programs to go back and help these guys, because they don't have a lot of positive outlets besides sports. Sports is only one arena. Right. That's only one arena right there. You got to touch all facets if we want to make this be long lasting. We can't just get into sports and rapping. That's only a little bit of what this whole world got going on. Like, they need to see people on TV. They need to see people in technology. They need to see people being chefs, all of that. And they're not seeing that. They're seeing basketball players, rappers. There's nothing wrong with that to the people that do that. Do your thing. But we need more of those people coming out of the woodworks that are doing other stuff, so they know it's bigger than that.
Yeah. And then also when you talked about discussing as far as the buck breaking of the man, and even I would say it was like a reversal to it with the men, because they too experience PTSD when they would see their wives or sisters or mothers being raped, and there was nothing that they could do in turn. And so that's always a consistent battle, I would say, in the Black community between the male and the female, is always, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, or I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, and I wanted to do this, but I couldn't do that, So it's always so much going on that, and I think that even shows now. We're still so scared to be on the front line for each other to an extent, because there have been more men who have been standing up for women here lately, but there are also still men who still disrespect other Black women as though that they did not come from a Black woman.
Oh, girl, that's a whole nother segment.
So that's a whole nother segment. But I'm just saying. And the same for the Black woman as well, and I know that sometimes that can come with, like you said, not knowing about authority. Because Black females go through that as well, with not having a Black male in the home, or I'll say a positive Black male in the home. It makes a difference. So when you do have those things, even a positive Black female, because we don't always talk about the toxic mother as well as the toxic father. Right. And it's both. It takes two to tango. And those are things that we have to be able to move through in the Black community and know that, shed light on it, that those situations are going on. Just like I had said previously, even with other females who have molested males, these are things that go on. We can't just try to blame it on one or the other, right, but as a whole, but to also know that we can get well together as well, but it takes unity.
And I think it's now coming into account about not blaming, because people are getting caught up in that, trying to figure out who to put it on. It's more so about accountability and taking that accountability. Like, you know what, I was wrong, but I'm trying to make it right, and I'm working on making that right. Is what I'm seeing, and speaking from the perspective of us, not leaving out our males at all, but speaking from our perspective, a lot of men, because a lot of us now are speaking up and saying, you know what, I'm not taking that anymore. I'm not taking certain toxic behaviors. I'm not taking certain things. And so certain males have gotten, offended, or they're like, y'all trying to put it all on us and make it seem like we this and we not that. And it's like, we're not saying that, but we can only speak from our perspective as Black women. I can't speak from your perspective about being a Black man, because I'm not that, and I will never be that. But what I can tell you is we're getting to the point where we're frustrated because we feel unprotected, and I don't mean just a physical unprotection. That's one of the things, but also an emotional. Is what I'm also starting to see, is that emotional disconnect. And it's because of different things, one of those things we're feeling like we're doing all the work when it comes to all of the emotions, and I know guys feel a way. I know that they have their opinion on it, but learning how to verbalize that without having to feel like you're being emasculated, right? Because you're not. But I think we're now, Black women especially, are getting to the point where we're trying to hold people accountable. And I'm trying to, in my personal life, figure out how to do that without making somebody feel offended. Because I can come off as strong. I'm a strong individual. My tone of voice is strong. So if you don't know me, then you would take it in that way, like, yo, she a little hard, like, chill, like. But I'm really a jelly bean. Like, I'm so emotional. But when I get passionate about something,
right,
you're going to hear that. Like, you're going to know that I'm passionate about that. But I think it's more so, especially when our generation is accountability, is what I want people to start taking into it. It ain't about blame and blaming nobody, because what's done has been done, and what has been done, it's not even our fault. It's been something that's been caused amongst our community for a reason, and we're continuing to fall into that trap of going back and forth with each other when that's not even what we need to do.
Yeah, definitely. And that would go into my next cue card of the distrust of men with women that ensues their emotionally unavailability. And since we do have a male in the audience, what better time than to bring you up, or anything that you may have to say as a male perspective? Would you like to come up?
Sure.
Okay.
I would say, hey, Lamar Bryan, just graduated from North Carolina Central University with my master's in public administration. I would say I'm glad at first you took I wouldn't say the blame off of the male, but you let us understand the difference between the male and the female, but you also didn't target one or the other, because I think we have to be careful with that in this community that we're in right now, the space that we're in with politics. When you blame one gender and then really kind of shy away from the other, I think that becomes the issue.
Definitely.
I think that becomes a problem, because now you're using or trying to use your expertise or your facts to target one gender when it's all of us. And I realize in my workspace, cultural diversity is a need. Cultural diversity accounts for sexual orientation, race, age. And so with me being a millennial, it's difficult for me to talk to an older or a seasoned, how I say it, seasoned individual, because they feel as though I'm only social media driven.
Right.
But being that I have both parents and I have my grandparents here, I've been taught wisdom and understanding to know that, social media doesn't run my life, but I do enjoy social media. I do enjoy the trends and style and fashion and stuff like that, but that's not only what makes me. And so I think, just to get back on your point, I also think that we have to understand that we're all hurt in this.
Definitely.
Nobody's perfect in that regard of, you're that female that's strong, independent. But you have to understand, on the other hand, you're hurt too. There's males that are out here that feel like they're strong, independent, can take care of their girlfriends, can take care of their wives, can take care of their children or the community, but they also have that hurt as well and that silence. And so I want to be careful in saying that we have to understand you can't help everybody, and you can't help the other gender, because we're all a work in progress.
Definitely.
And so with that being said, I think we have to just remain careful and diligent in trying to find a way to converse with our counterparts, whether it be your job, whether it be school, whether it be your relationships, whether it be your parents. Because there's some issues that comes with being parents and children.
Definitely.
There's some issues, and I feel as though when you go to school, you try to get that connection because you don't have that connection at home. But a teacher, I'm glad that you're a black teacher. However, some things a teacher simply can't teach what my mama and daddy could teach me. And so with that being said, there's a need for black leaders. We understand that. There's a need for black women, and sometimes a black male just can't fit that persona because a female needs to do that. You know what I'm saying? And a female can't step in a role because a male needs to do that. And so with that being said, I think we have to be careful, and I don't think it's a disrespect thing. I think it's we don't know, and we're trying to be careful because I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's us being disrespectful with women or women being disrespectful with us. But I think at this point in the space that we're in, we're just simply trying to be careful. Now you do have females and males that do target and throw blows, and you have that group. But I think when you really open up to people and be open-minded, and you have cultural diversity, whether it be to a different sex, I think it has a different way of working itself out. if you will.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah, I was about to say that too. And
Conversation.
also like different areas that'll generate the difference as well.
Right.
Like even from your northern people get your south, west, east, all of that.
Right.
You know, we have all different cultures. So I think even when it comes down to dating and procreating with somebody, it means something totally different for everybody. And even love per se, everybody, they look for it in different ways. You know, some people they're actually genuinely looking for the actual act of love, and then other people they're looking for stability, and that's love for them. You know, whatever the case may be. And so even like you said, not knowing or being raised differently, and like you said, having both parents and having your grandparents, you had an advantage more so than someone who didn't get to know their grandparents at all, or either they didn't have their parents, or you know may have been raised by their grandparents, so you know they got something different there as well. You know, so that gives you a child who has more wisdom and more respect as compared to somebody who ain't never had an old person in their life, don't know what it is about being about around nobody old until they bump into them at the grocery store or something. So, you know, it does, and it shows that difference. But like you also, with being other people in the community, that's why it is a need for that, and even the need of it takes a village. Because just like you said, the things that you can't get from your teacher, or some things you can't always get from your parents. And some things that is taught either through experience or someone else who may have brought that lesson to you, and that is completely fine. And that goes to even with the community on not really raising the kids, you know, as a village anymore, because it's all about no, don't touch my kid, don't say nothing to my child. But and sometimes they need that extra piece of chastisement from somebody, you know.
And like you said, getting into everybody is now trying to be careful because you don't know what's going on. And I think a lot of women, it's not that we're, you know, trying to put it all on, you know, the male speak. It's not like that at all. And I think that's where it's a something that's going like being misconstrued about that, and vice versa. Like it's vice versa, because Lamar and I talk all the time about certain and different things, and we feel the same way in different respects because we're different genders, so we deal with it in a different way. But I want people to start realizing that black women and black men, it ain't nobody that got it worse. We just got it different. We all fighting the same battle of oppression. We just got it different, because I've heard people say, well, I got it worse because you don't got to go out here and get worried about this being done. And I'm like, okay, it might not seem like that's what I got to worry about, but think about my perspective. I got to go out and worry about people sexualizing me and calling me and catcalling me, and then if I don't answer them, calling me names and calling me out my name and disrespecting me in that way. So it's like, yo, it's not even like we in a race or one is above the other. No, we in the same thing. We in this together. And I think that we're now, as millennials especially, trying to figure out how to get back to that stage of, you know, what we saw with older generations of loving one another through this. And
through the struggle.
Loving us through the struggle, because it seems to be that, and if you're not careful and you get into these news outlets and media outlets, if you watch too many of them, you will start to see, you know, the black man and the black woman going against each other instead of coming together, because we're looking at this and we're looking at it like, oh yeah, you're right. And then you get caught up in that versus we in this together. And I think because people, and me being a black woman speaking from my perspective, I do stand up and I stick up for black women on, you know, certain issues because that's what I'm passionate about. That doesn't negate from the fact that I love a black man and I also stick up from a black man, but I speak up for a black woman because that's what I am, you know. But some people feel like, well, what about us? Because I've had people ask me when me doing Girl Squad, well, what about the dudes? And I'm like, I love y'all, but right now my focus is on this. Like it's geared towards that.
I was about to say, now, see, when I hear things like that, it's like, well, I know that it's black men who can stand up for you as well. So why aren't you asking, where are they? It's not so much as us, because we're standing up for ourselves, you know, to stand up for someone else. But like you said before, I don't know what it is for you as a black man.
Or how it feels
to be a black man. Not to say that I can't advocate for you.
Or I can't be empathetic towards you, because I can show empathy towards you.
But it's also like, where are the black men who are in the places where they can bring, you know, communities or forums for other black men, you know? And not to say that it's not any around, because there are. But for other men who feel as though, well, you know, well, why y'all not doing this, that, and the third? Make those groups with your friends, with your
become that person.
Or become that person.
Become that person.
You know, become that person.
Just to add to Anika's point, I think, like you were saying, we're not in a race, but I think the competition that we have, as for me per se, as a black male, the competition that I have with me and the male versus the world, and the competition that a female has with a female versus the world makes us compete against one another. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not really, it's a thin line, but the thin line comes in because of the competition that we have personally. You know, the competition that we have as separate genders. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so with that, I think it builds, then you have two competitions going on with separate genders, but then that comes together. And then from conversations with each other, then it builds like is there a competition with us, you know? And so I think that's where it goes back to, you know, back in the day, that was the issue, but it was with skin, you know, skin color.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, I think like I said, I think we like this is a good platform to vocalize, and we don't have a competition with one another, you know, but the competition that we have with the world simply makes us compete against one another. And honestly, that's just to be honest, you know, that's just to be
We both
truthful.
have a rage within
Right.
us. You have a black rage within you, and we both go out and put on this, you know, this face when you leave your house and you smiling towards the world. But it's like when y'all come home, y'all kind of give each other that rage, and it's like, baby, we got it.
We're
get
not.
this
We're
together.
mad at the wrong.
Because
Exactly.
we
And
mad
that's
at
us
the
as a
wrong
community.
thing. Yeah, we mad
That's
at
us
the
as
wrong
a community.
people.
Like, we're mad at each other. Like, even with black on black crime, or even just backbiting on each other, the things that we do, not wanting to help each other get ahead, or even just the crab in the bucket mentality, you know, not really giving people their props or trying to do things.
Exactly.
It's the same situation. Like, we can do this for other people, or even just sometimes the support from your own people that you don't know. You know, it makes a difference within the community. But like you said, we can go give this face at work, or either other people that we have to deal with that are not like us, and then our family have to deal with the mean us. And it's like,
Yes.
you know, and it's, you know, and I've even myself, I can say that I've been a part of done something like that, you know, and not really realizing I'm not upset with what's going on at home. I'm upset with what was going on before.
And I don't know
But I don't know how to vocalize it, or I hadn't released it yet, you know. But now that I'm here, now I'm giving this energy off to the other people around
That
me,
don't deserve
and
it.
who don't deserve it, and it's not fair as well. And yeah, that's with that myself.
But
But I feel you 100%.
I feel like, and this definitely needs to be more of a conversation if we are going to break that, you know, bumping heads with each other. We have to have that conversation, because a lot of things are assumed amongst the genders. Well, you know, all y'all must be like this, or all this is like that. People generalize one group of people, and I even have to correct my kids and say, you can't say that about everybody. You have to reword that and say some. Because it's not all. It's not all females are this way. It's not all males are this way. And the only way we're going to see that is if we come together and see each other. And a lot of our views are like that based on what we saw or not saw.
Yeah.
Because some of us didn't grow up in a two-parent home, like for me, for instance. So it was hard for me to see certain males in a certain way, because the males that I saw, it was negative experiences around me. It was males that wasn't going out to do positive stuff because they didn't know how. Now that I know that while I'm growing up, I knew that they didn't know how. They weren't taught that. They didn't learn that. They didn't, you know, take on that accountability role, and now they're having to deal with that and deal with certain stuff. But it also affected me and kind of had my vision skewed. And then, you know, meeting people like, you know, you have Lamar's of the world, you know, meeting people like him, meeting men like him, and seeing like, dang, I gotta change my perspective, because all of them are not bad.
Right.
You know, there are some that are good. There are some that are respectful and have been taught, you know, how to be respectful. But that comes with you seeing and experiencing that and having that experience.
And that's what I was going to say with you as well, what you had talked about with not knowing with the kids, like even with women. It is some women who do know, I cannot be the male for this male child.
Right.
And, you know, they place that child in either areas or around certain men to help either, I guess you could say, quote unquote, toughen him up, or make him more of a boy, to show him more manly things as compared to what a woman can do. You know, and it's not to say that she can't teach him or raise him to be a nice young gentleman, but they still need that male structure, because once males get to a certain age, and females too, you know, they have to have some type of structure because they're starting to smell themselves. And when you don't have that, it does kind of deter you away. You can go a whole nother type of path without having the right type of mentor of the exact sex that you need for, depending on the individual.
You need to see both.
Because you need to see
You
both.
need to
Like
see
you
a
need to
positive
see
view
both
of
on how you need to be treated, as well as how you need to treat someone else of the opposite sex. Like I'll say for myself, I didn't know, that was something I had to learn at one point in time. I didn't always know how to treat a male, you know, certainly, I guess a certain way, I guess you could say, outside of, like you said, being of the family or just someone close, you know, always having
in a
different
relational
way.
Seeing
you know,
that up
all of
close.
that. You have to see it, and it works on both parts. Even like with the male, knowing exactly how he needs to treat the female, you know, not to hit her, as well as to be gentle with her. As well, women weren't always taught as that sometimes men need to be comforted and soft loved on as well. So it's a lot to it, but we breaking the chains, I would say.
And even us, if we want to talk about going into, you know, relationships, and I think some of the reasons why is because a lot of us women have been taught to, and I love my mom. My mom has taught me to be resourceful, but I also think my mama taught me to be too independent.
Yeah.
And that wasn't her fault, but I think it was something that was passed on because, like I said, the lack of male influence in the household, you just grow up with the mentality like, I just gotta do it myself. So I'm gonna do it myself. So then you kind of disregard the male. And then it wasn't until I got older and it was brought to my attention, like, yo, you just disregard me. Like, you make me feel like I'm not special and I'm not this and I'm that. And I say, dang, like, I do that. And it's not because I mean to, but it's because that was the way I was raised. If he not gonna do it, then I'm
gonna get it done.
And it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
It's also a setup in our society, as we know, to keep the man out of the household and put him in, you know, to the system, or and make him, you know, feel like he got to go on the street to help take care of or do whatever. So it goes all back to all of this stuff,
All of it.
you know, that was imposed on us way before. And, you know, we're dealing with that now, like as females, and then males, you know, dealing with us and us dealing with it. We trying to break that down, like we trying to say,
but
you know
like
what?
you said, we're breaking the cycles, like, because it takes steps to know, like, you know what, granted my mother or my father, they were this, that, and the third, but also they may have lacked in this to where now that's an issue that I'm dealing with, but that's accountability. And that's something that we have to work on and keep doing and make sure that we move forward to make those changes for ourselves. Because there was a quote that I remember reading. It was like, my past may not have been my fault, but my healing is. You know, like,
I like that.
And that's something that, you know, like, granted, whatever may have happened, and it may not have been the best, but it is also your accountability to heal, to not let it deter you, break you down, make you bitter. You know, whatever the case may be. So we still have to keep rising. And things like this, things like Girl Squad, you know, or anything that you may do with any other males, young males, to be a mentor to them as well as myself, that's what's helping us to go higher and to keep breaking the molds. Because I'm sure that we broke generational curses within our families that we either know of or haven't known of. I know I have myself, and God is forever grateful for that. So this has been wonderful. I thank you both. What's your name again? Lamar. Thank you, Lamar. Thank you, Anika. Tea Time with Key. 400, and let's go on to a better 400 years.
Let's keep doing it.
For us, financial literacy, all of that. Y'all keep tuning in. Tea Time with Key. Out.
There are millions of boys and girls